update on that?
Absolutely. Just to summarize, when we leave our board meeting, within a week, we should have minutes prepared and put out on a secure website. They have to be available 30 days prior to our next board meeting. So they need to be available for that, to give the board members plenty of time to approve them. Once they're approved, then they'll go on to a public location for everybody to view. And unless I've completely misunderstood anything, I'll let Haley verify that that's correct. And within a week, they will be available for the board to be reviewed, so that when we come in here in February, they're confident, and that way they have any questions, we're ready to move forward.
Thank you. We have a guest that just walked in. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, Erin Nail with Capital Resources.
All right, thank you. All right, agenda item number 3 is Board Regulation 29. We have several people that would like to speak on that. I'm going to start with saying that we have passed as a board to remove the frequently asked question. That's done. We're not here to discuss that, and I would appreciate it if it doesn't get brought up over and over because it's not necessary. We have passed that. We've also passed to have dental anesthesiologists included in the verbiage in section 2, part D. So that's done. So again, if that's what you want to speak on, don't bother. We've already passed that, and we don't need to hear it again. So, Dr. Mathias is not here. Dr. Sumner, do you have comments?
Good morning.
Kind of we can just pass out the supporting material to you.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Oh, there's 2 pages to each.
As you all know, I'm Trice Sumner, board certified pediatric dentist. I asked to speak today because despite raising concerns for nearly a year over the unsafe use of general anesthesia on pediatric patients for restorative dental care in a dental office setting, someone or something is blocking any board action to curtail this practice.
Okay, we're not gonna go there.
I'm
I don't
asking
want you to
for,
sit there and read to us something we can read,
I'm
and I
asking,
don't want to hear the
I'm
same
asking
thing.
for enforcement of Regulation 29.
Thank you. Do you have more to add to that?
I do, but I
I
have to.
don't want you to sit there and read that to us if we can read it ourselves.
Are you going to enforce Regulation 29?
I'm gonna act on what the board wants to act on. We've already voted.
But it's not enforceable. You said that to me on the
We
phone.
will take care of things when we take care of it. That's the board's discretion to do that.
Let me read over my stuff to see what I need to say. That's not what you asked me not to say.
I will say this, the board will file any changes with the Secretary of State and Occupational Review Licensure Commission. And if anybody wishes to make and request a public hearing on those or submit comments, that's provided for in the statute. You're welcome to do that.
Okay, when is that going to?
Once you file it with the Secretary of State and Occupational Review Commission, then there's a 30-day waiting period, and people can submit comments at that point.
And may I ask why it wasn't done after the last meeting when it was said we were going to
Because
do
there
it?
may be some other changes.
Okay, why did you do that?
Board considerations.
Let me just look through this on this. Okay, so I'm gonna I noticed today on the agenda that there are several people up for general anesthesia permits. And I would ask that because the regulation is not enforceable at this time, because it hasn't gone before the OLRC or whatever the board reasons are behind that, that you do not give out any general anesthesia permits except to qualified oral and maxillofacial surgeons or dental anesthesiologists until the regulation becomes punishable, enforceable, and thus that same permit revocable by the board if it's not treated appropriately.
We cannot act on things that are not in the regulations.
What do you mean?
Meaning if we make decisions, it's based on what the regulations are right now. We can't say, well, in the future, we might do this, so we're gonna hold off.
Right, but the regulation as it reads, since you've taken down the FAQs, et cetera, requires that the operating dentist have a permit, except for that you told me that it wasn't enforceable or punishable at this time. And so I can't see why you would give an anesthesia permit to someone right now until you complete this process, whatever it is that you're doing, to get it to where you think it's a workable document.
You have to add.
Can I speak to that just for a second?
Yes, sir.
Given our anesthesia program, you have to follow the school process. We can't say we only give them to old surgeons, only give them to pediatrics, only give them to anybody. So whoever applies for one that meets the requirements of those regulations, we're gonna have to give them. We can't issue a stay on issuing any kind of licenses that our regulations apply to.
Even though right now you're stating that you can't really monitor or regulate the regulation or do anything with it, enforce the regulation? Under the same-
Regulations only apply to, the thing you're speaking of how we interpreted regulations now. I see no reason why we can't enforce that once we get the approval from the occupational review board.
Are you gonna
Clarify
explain
something.
why?
Under the rules and regulations, as they are now written, aside from any changes that will be submitted to the Occupational Review Commission and the Secretary of State, this board can grant general anesthesia permits to those that meet the requirements under the rules.
Right, but there are businesses right now that are operating without an operator permit, having a permit. And we were told that we can't make a complaint and we can't punish and we can't enforce that because of whatever process this is
You
going
gotta go through
through.
that
You cannot
process,
go through
but I
it.
just thought I heard you say that there's several items on the agenda today for applicants seeking a general anesthesia permit.
Correct. I was just saying until you,
If
when
they
you
meet all
finish
the
the
requirements under
process,
the
whatever it is, so that you can enforce the regulation, I don't see that there's a purpose in issuing these permits because you can't regulate them.
You need to just try to separate two different things.
Yes, sir.
You've got regulation that's been in effect for years, which gives this board the authority to grant general anesthesia permits to those that meet all the requirements.
Yes.
Then you have the amendment. The board cannot enforce the amendment until they go through the process, but they can still consider applicants for general anesthesia permits.
Is there more to add?
Here comes.
Dr. Conaway, since you will not hear her remarks, can she submit them to your record?
Certainly can. Okay, Dr. Green? Please be reminded, this needs to be new.
Yes,
So we don't want to hear the same as the previous.
My comment is related to the anesthesia application. On there, it speaks of a training program, and I can't find anywhere to where that training program is defined. I consider a training program in this case scenario to be a residency program, not a weekend or 2 week or, I don't know, however many weeks or whatever program to gain that general anesthesia permit. And I have not been able to find the details of it.
Read through the entire reg 29.
I called myself doing it.
In the back is descriptions of programs that meet the requirements for each term.
Because when I think about our dental license, I value mine, and as well as I'm sure you do, and we spent 4 years working fairly hard for that license. When I start to think about this general anesthesia permit, there are people that qualify for this that have put in 3, 4, and 5 years to obtain that. It would, in my opinion, devalue my dental license if I could get that in a shorter form of a course, as well as devalue the general anesthesia permit if you could obtain that in a shorter course.
I speak to that, I can almost assure you, without even asking, polling the board, no general anesthesia permits are gonna be permitted on a weekend course. That's not right.
Thank you. And these are just, I mean, these are my thoughts on comparing this to our dental license and how that equates to these anesthesiologists, these surgeons that have spent 3, 4, and 5 extra years of training. I would hate for my dental license to be obtained in less than what we consider and have considered to be set number of years to where you can try to learn it.
And I think the board agrees with that wholeheartedly. All right, thank you. Dr. Godet?
Yes. Let me stay right here if that's okay.
Wait, stop! Well, you took my tripod with you.
Okay, well, if you put it right behind the wheels of my wheelchair,
Well,
that's
you
gonna
rolled
happen.
up to it. I was here first.
Okay.
Get over
All
it.
right. Just chill, dude.
Well, I'll sit around.
I'll just stay right here if that's all right. I'm just here, I was asked to come by my colleague Vicki Avancic, who's she's currently the president of the American Academy of Pediatrics, and she's going to be rolling off in January, and I'll become president. So I wanted to come and speak to this issue about general anesthesia that's come up already, and just from the pediatric perspective, and I think everybody here is of one mind, where patient safety is of paramount and utmost importance. My office is actually on the second floor of an ambulatory surgery center, and I have had the opportunity on more than one occasion to be called to come and take care of a patient, not a dental patient per se, but ophthalmology or orthopedics or whatever. And in my experience, it's not a question of if there is the potential for a bad outcome or unexpected event. It's a matter of when. And I think we want to make sure, and I know you guys are interested in this as well, but the highest standards of patient safety should be of paramount importance. And with pediatric patients, I think, we say this all throughout residency, and those students just roll their eyes because we say it too much. Children are not small adults, and when you are performing an invasive procedure on a child, there are considerations that may differ from what you see with adults. Their level of sedation can progress from mild to moderate to deep sedation. They can waver between these different levels of sedation unexpectedly, and the potential for an adverse outcome is, of course, it's not expected, but it should be definitely planned for. And with those, and part of that planning, I think, would involve having the highest qualified personnel administering the sedation and being prepared in the case of an adverse event, which would include preparing to have that patient transferred to an inpatient facility if need be. Like I said, I have the benefit, really, of having the ambulatory surgery center right beneath my office, and I'm able to go down whenever it's necessary, and it has been necessary on occasion. And I'm hesitant, and I'm a little, and this is not something that I've ever seen in any level of my training, whether it's med school, residency, or in practice, doing moderate or deep sedation in an office setting where you don't have all of the equipment and the personnel. It's kind of like having the fire department. You've got to be, they may be twiddling their thumbs for many hours at a time, but you got to be prepared for a huge conflagration, because when it happens, you've got to be ready for it. And
I
that's.
think we're hearing some things that we've covered thoroughly in the past, so can we move forward? into
We can move forward. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Eggman.
My email was merely to attend. I'm sorry, I have no comments.
Dr. Johnson.
I would just like to express
You can have this whole area right now.
Thank you.
We do not have an issue with the dental anesthesiologist doing the job. Our issue is strictly with where they're doing the job and under what circumstances. According to the reg, which is what I've been practicing by for 22 years, the The dental anesthesiologist is supposed to be on staff at a local hospital for all the appropriate reasons. The office should meet the standards of an outpatient service. The operating dentist is supposed to have a general anesthesia permit. That is black and white in the reg that we currently practice in. So, as you can see, it's very frustrating for us as advocates for children in the state of Mississippi why this has taken a year and a half to get done.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Dr. Lilly?
I'm with the Mississippi Center for Advanced Medicine. We're with the pediatric specialists. We're all over the state. And I'm not going to rehash what's been so eloquently covered, but I would just plea again to not cut any corners when it comes to children. I think in this state we tend to say that we need to increase access. We need to consider the poor. All very good motivations, but our poor children don't deserve second rate. They don't deserve the back of a strip mall. They don't deserve to be squeezed in by people who fly in and out and aren't here to attend to complications. We need people who put them first. We don't need to consider any of our children differently. And so I'm going to just plead with the board to enforce the very strictest regulations we can when it comes to one of the most dangerous things we can do to a child, which is to have them undergo sedation. I can also attest as a pediatric endocrinologist that our comorbidities in the state are astounding. I'm seeing problems in children that I wasn't expecting, and until adulthood. We're seeing sleep apnea, airway complications, diabetes, obesity, and it's just a whole different ballgame than it was even a decade ago. And so. Again, we have a high-risk population, and so we need to take every measure to keep these children safe. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Weather.
I'm a nurse anesthetist. I'm not a doctor or a dentist. This is just a typo on the list.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm a nurse anesthetist. I'm the president of the Mississippi Association of Nurse Anesthetists, representing about 750 nurse anesthetists in our state. I'm not going to read out of respect to the board here, but I will submit my comments. I'm here today. I'm kind of new to this firestorm, new to the party or late to the party. I'm here today to talk about the actual general anesthesia permit and how we find that restrictive to allow a second set of hands and an expert provider to come into these situations. I wholeheartly agree with all the comments about the safety in the environment, but I do feel that a 2-week course certainly is not a substitute for having a trained personnel there. I have members all over the state that contact me on a regular basis and have dentists that would wish to utilize services, and it seems that the permit that's required is a restriction on allowing an expert to come in the office instead of an adjunct. I think that there's no, like I said, a 2-week course is no substitute to the training that a nurse anesthetist, a dental anesthesiologist, an MD anesthesiologist have obtained during their training period. And I understand that it would take some legislative effort to try to enhance that, to make it easier for us to work together as colleagues. And like I said, I didn't realize what I was stepping into here today, but I just wanted to submit that for consideration, that we can look at that. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Would you elaborate a little bit on a 2-week course? To my
So,
knowledge,
I
it's
just
a 2-week course to obtain a general anesthesia permit.
So Duchesne University is the place that I looked at in Pennsylvania. One of the dentists that asked me to be here, who has a general anesthesia permit, offers a mini residency, which obviously if he obtained a permit was something that was acceptable to this board. It's about a $15,000 course. It's a 2-week course given in 2 separate weeks. It's about 60 hours, I think, of CEU. There are 20 cases, I think, that are involved. And that's one of the accepted courses that this board utilizes to issue permits.
Can I speak to that?
Yes, sir.
There are different levels of permit. Now, that might be a course that we would approve for minimal sedation, but that's certainly not going to be a course we're going to approve for general anesthesia. So if they tell you that, that's incorrect.
Do
You
that.
might approve it in that state, but not in the state.
answer your concern.
Well, let me retract that and just say that maybe I'm not talking about a general anesthesia permit. I'm talking about the permit to allow for a nurse anesthetist or an MD anesthesiologist to work in the dental office.
Okay.
And you're
My
saying
mistake.
you are in favor of this?
I am in favor of not having a permit to have a second person come in. I feel that a permit should be required for anyone providing their own sedation to a patient. But a permit to allow for an expert to come in seems to have no merit. There's no research out there that I've been able to find that a permit of that nature actually increases safety.
Okay. Other thoughts on that? You done?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Dr. Mathias, you came in late. You didn't hear my comments. I do not want to hear the same information we've already heard.
Sure.
FAQ has been taken off. General anesthesiologist definition has been added. If you have something new to add, please do. Otherwise, please do not read and repeat things we've already heard.
Well, I'm not going to repeat because I have a new idea and a new solution. But I will read. I will be brief. To quote our most recent Nobel laureate, Bob Dylan, the times they are a-changing. Medicine, dentistry, and science have changed dramatically in the last 30 years or so since the board's general anesthesia sedation guidelines were written. This regulation is sorely outdated. In my opinion, it needs to be totally revamped and not simply tweaked. My continued reading over the last few months of this regulation has led me to find many countless contradictions within the regulation itself. The rewriting of the guidelines can easily and quickly be accomplished by a select committee composed of CRNAs, medical anesthesiologists, dentist anesthesiologists, general dentists, and oral surgeons, and anyone else qualified who wishes to serve on this select committee. The board can ask...
I'm going to ask you to just submit that to us instead of reading to us, and just summarize quickly, please.
Well, I would like to tell you how this board can make recommendations to the dental board. It can be set up, if you wish, by the governor as a selective committee like we had on opioids. You can get all the experts together. I know that we can come together because I've talked to many of the pediatric dentists, anesthesiologists, CRNAs, and medical anesthesiologists. I know that we are all in agreement about safety. However, the board, in my opinion, is not qualified to go out and inspect these, the safety of office anesthesia. There are 2 organizations in the United States, and I've listed them in this letter, that can go and qualify and inspect every 2 years these office anesthesia places. And I very, very, very heartedly suggest to you that you employ that, which will release you from the difficulties that you are going to have in going out and making sure that everything is copacetic in these offices. And I also suggest that all these operatories must be stationary. They cannot be transient, moved in and out. We need national standards, not state standards, and we all know what the national standards are, and all of us in this room who know anything about general anesthesia and sedation in an outpatient setting, we can come to agreement on this, and we can do it quickly. What is not changing, however, in these times is the reason this board exists, and that is to protect the citizens of Mississippi. And for the most part in these circumstances, to protect the poorest and most vulnerable citizens, our children. And I beg this committee, this board, to put together a select committee of very astute people. And I guarantee you, in all the talks I've had, we can do this quickly, we can do it efficiently, and we can get you the best regulations possible. And in closing, I know that you said that the FAQs were, that the FAQ was removed, but I want to be assured by this board that letters have gone out to all the dentists telling them that the FAQ has been removed and what that means to them. I also know the board voted in the majority to have Mr. Ingram take this to the governor's committee, and I do not know, nor does anybody that I've been talking to, know whether that has taken place. And I demand to know why this has not occurred if it hasn't. And I also wish to point out to this board that it does not have a single dental specialist on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you did bring up a point that I want to address, and I appreciate that. The idea of inspections in the office, and we did have some information provided to us by one company that would like to do that, and I would propose that we consider outside sources. It may be the combination of keeping our inspectors here available, but also having a list of acceptable companies to do those inspections. The Accreditation Association, Dr. John Roberts is one of them that did present information to us, but Dr. Theis may also provide us with some other ones. What's the board's thoughts on using an outside source to provide inspection information?
I think it's a good idea. We talked to this gentleman from Memphis. Also, he has some affiliation in Hattiesburg, I believe, as well. And not only would he provide inspections, but recommendations, as well as preparation for dental emergency situations, bad situations, training the assistants as well as the dentists how to properly react in those situations in the dental office. And I think it's a very comprehensive program. It does come with a fee, and it's going to be cost the dental facility, but here again, the public, the safety of the children or the adults is what's of primary importance.
I agree. I think having that go to rules and regs to evaluate and come up with the companies that we would allow or endorse would be the next step to consider.
Can I ask a question about that? How often do they do the certifications? Is it every 2 years, or is it
We may have what's in our regulations.
Yeah. And
We can take that.
but we should have some, the dental assisting population is very transient, and we should have some method to have new dental assistants who come into those offices retrained, because it's just not the dentist barking out the orders, it's the dental assistants or whoever is there helping to know what their role is, what they're supposed to do, different situations, so, there should be some avenue or some provision for retraining of new assistants.
And does this particular company you're speaking of provide like a certification, or is it just an inspection?
Just to answer that a little bit, Father, when somebody applies for an initial general anesthesia permit, we don't just send somebody out that has no clue what's going on with general anesthesia. Typically, we use a former board member that possesses a general anesthesia permit, and we use him to go do the site inspection for them. And on subsequent years, because there's a list of materials that were supposed to be there, there may not be that specialist inspecting it in subsequent years, but especially for the initial one, we typically use someone that has knowledge in the field and not just
I know that the oral surgeons used AOMS. Would that be something to consider as well, an AOMS inspection or certification? I've read their application, and it's every 2 years, and it's their certificate, and it requires a lot of the.
It's too early to give that answer. Again, I'm recommending that we go to rules and regs, let them evaluate the companies that we would consider, and see if we want to introduce that into the regulation. Any other questions about that? We had some guests come in that didn't introduce themselves yet. Can you introduce if you just came in?
Oh, my name's Doug Mercier.
Okay.
I'm Leah Smith with Disposal.
Okay. Any other thoughts on the outside inspectors being used? No? Is anyone going to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to allow rules and regs to do the research and bring back recommendation for the next board meeting.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion on that?
And let me make a statement just to clarify, for everybody that's here that wishes to comment on Regulation 29, once the board hears from the Rules and Regs Subcommittee and makes a proposed change, it will be filed with the Secretary of State and the Occupational Review Commission. Then that kicks in the 30-day period in which anybody can file a comment or make a statement. It seems like it's dragged out, but it takes time. It takes time to do this. And you can ask the medical board, it took almost 3 years to go through all of the opioid rules and regulations. This takes time. The board wants to make sure they do it right. So you will have further opportunity to make comments. Dr. Mathias, I love your quote here from Lily Tomlin. No matter how cynical you get, it's impossible to keep up. But the point I'm making here is that everybody will have a chance to make their comment, file a statement if you wish, and request a hearing on the matter. It seems repetitious, but that's the statute, and that's, the board's gonna comply with that statute.
All right, got a motion, no other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? So moved. So that, that's the rule and reg, is done with that. All right, while we're on Reg 29, is there anyone else that would like to make a comment?
Dr. Conway, Bree Branson, New York Association of Pediatrics. Can you clarify for us, is Regulation 29 as written enforceable, and is the board enforcing it?
We're gonna enforce what's written today.
You are, thank you. That's what we need to know.
If everybody gets through, I'd like to make a comment.
All right, any other person want to comment on Reg 29?
Right, at the last board meeting, I believe we voted to add the anesthesiologist to the section, anesthesiologist and CRN. And I did bring this up at the, minutes, but it's not listed in the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay.
But I know we voted on it and did it. The question, because we had a lot of discussion about something. And I know that you don't wanna go back, but I am, as a board member, concerned that we didn't take action on that vote immediately. We're still 30 days, about 45 days out now, and nothing's been done with that action that we took at the last board meeting. It should have gone, it should have been written up by Stan and gone to occupational review, in my opinion, in 2 weeks after the meeting. And here it is today, we're in our next meeting and it still hasn't been done. And I'm just gonna, we're friends around this table, but I'm gonna voice a concern that actions that we take do not take place when we take the actions. And I don't know, I'm not blaming anybody, I'm just saying it hadn't been done and it should have been done. So that's a concern I have. And the other concern I have, because all this is been percolating, I've done a lot more reading, I am the newbie on the board. And I've had some anesthesia experience, even though I used to do it a lot when I first got out of school, and it just wound up not being feasible for me to go to the hospital and do it as much as I was. But I started pulling the regs and reading them closer. And I had always been told, and now I can't find my applications, so I'll go back. I've always been told that to get a general anesthesia permit, you have to have some education. So I had a GPR, so I had some education. I never applied for it because I wanted to go, my goal was to go to the hospital and not do it in my office. But I pulled out the application and read the application closer. And I was concerned and still concerned today, and I like what we're dealing with this, the Rules and Regs Committee, to look at this. In the application, there's A, B, C, D, and E on experience and education. And A, B, C, and D has experience and education. D says, are you gonna employ somebody to do it? So that means a general dentist with no experience could check that box and get the same general anesthesia permit as an oral surgeon or a dental anesthesiologist. And that concerns me. So I think we need to have a close look at that. And I've asked staff, and of course we've lost a lot of staff and the history's gone. And maybe that's a good thing, because that history is the one that told me that they had to have some education experience to get a general anesthesia permit.
But according to the application that I'm reading, they don't have to. And that should concern us all around this table. So I'm gonna make a motion that the rules and regs look at that application again and make a determination if E is applicable to that permit. Because right now, the permit is the same if you got a dental anesthesiologist or an oral surgeon requesting a general sedation permit as a general dentist that has zero experience and zero education. And that is not right. That is not consistent at all. So I think we need to have a good close look at it. So my motion is to rules and regs to take a look at that application and make some adjustments and bring a recommendation to the board at the next board meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I have a little bit of discussion on that. I was almost certain that there was a part of the regulation that says for general anesthesia, you have to complete a residency.
Let me, here's the application, if you go to page,
But that may be on the application.
yeah, but this is all, this is what they fill out to get
That doesn't mean they get it though, that's what they fill out.
we're gonna be voting on two today. Let's fill this out, they don't have any experience.
We'll have to vote on that.
And there's many that's gone through that we've already voted on, because they check the boxes, and you can ask our legal counsel, they check the boxes, or we don't say no. And the box says, it's in the same line as everybody else.
But as Delton pointed out in the regulation, there is stipulation for level of education.
Okay.
Each permit.
I would agree with that, but this is the application we go by. We don't look at the reg as we're deciding those applications. We never have. We've always been told they filled the criteria, and we voted yes.
I do know that when I'm looking at an application, I'm looking through the application to see if there's a big residency. So we need to correct what the application says. I think the regulation still covers us.
Regulation controls.
We're not gonna grant general anesthesia permits to somebody that's not qualified.
Dr. Manning, I would just ask if we could, at some point, look at that regulation, the section you're describing, because I think it says a program. I'm not sure there's a modifier in front of it. For example, residency, like Dr. Moore says. I don't think the word residency is in there. I would just ask if we would just look at that at some point, because I think it just says a program, and that was actually the confusion way back in the Rules and Regs meeting several months ago, where I was asking what is a program. So, thank you.
I'm gonna clarify this. The top heading says, check categories of training and education criteria qualifying you to permit credentials and/or substantiating documents must be sent directly to the board office from the institutional organization. And I'm gonna briefly go through A, B, C, and D, and E. A is complete a one-year advanced training in anesthesiology or related academic subjects, and it talks about the parts 1, 2, and 3 of the guidelines. B is a diplomat of the American Board of Oral Maxillofacial Surgeons. C is a member of the American Association of Oral Maxillofacial Surgeons. D is eligible for examination by the American Board of OMS. And E says, and I'm gonna read this one, employment or work in conjunction with qualified dental anesthesiologist or certified nurse anesthetist who is a member of the anesthesia staff in an accredited hospital, provided that such anesthesiologist or CRNA must remain on the premises of the dental facility until any given patient, given any level of anesthetic, remains conscious and is discharged. That's what we go by. I know the reg says that, but staff only looks at this and says they meet the qualifications. So that's, my concern is, again, this is the training and education we're asking applicants to prove to us they have. And the general dentist that has had no experience and no education doesn't have to give us anything.
Okay. So we're ready to vote on that motion to update the paperwork? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And to address your concern about the board voting, the board did vote, and that vote hasn't been changed. It is in place, and I understand your concern about the timing of things, but there are other issues that are being considered as well, and the board has not lost their vote. You got your vote, it's there, Nothing's been changed about it, so you got to vote the way you want it.
My problem is, it's been, since the last meeting, we should already address it.
But there are other issues that you're not aware of, and that's just something that.
It's what I'm aware of. I'm a board member, and I know we made a motion to do something, and it hadn't been done. That's what I'm aware of.
It's done.
No, it hadn't. The occupation review board has not set it, and we have to go through that process for 30 days, so we're still delayed.
Okay. Board Regulation 61, agenda item number 4. Donald, you have that?
Okay, I had sent, and I apologize for being late on sending this out. And I'm gonna make a motion to review this with rules and regs, but I'm gonna go very quickly and briefly with you. I had been asked to attend a site visit, and I'm not gonna give the area and place that we went, on a portable dental facility that does not have a permit to operate. And upon arriving, found out that they actually have 17 sites that they consider portable and 1 mobile unit. Again, the operation does not have a permit with us. But in the process of doing so, I pulled the reg down and read it very thoroughly. And came up with a concern that there's actually some things in the reg that are contrary to other parts of my reg. So I made some adjustments. I sent it to you guys, I think it was yesterday or Wednesday. But I'd like to make a motion that rules and regs look at these and make some adjustments to 61 accordingly. Just briefly, it mentions operator as the dentist that's doing the treatment, and then it mentions treating dentist and other parts of it, so they're confusing. Which one are we talking about? We need to be consistent with that. We need to define the owner a little bit better of the operation. We have some good parts that I've highlighted. Again, there's places out there that do not have permits that we need to be compliant with. We need to be a little bit better in reporting the changes in the operations.